I'd like to now invite one of our alumni mentors, Matt Golden, to turn on his camera and join the stage here. We're going to chat a little bit about Matt's career and his experiences. He is the founder and managing partner at Golden Ventures, holds a Bachelor of Arts in Economics from LAMPS. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks so much for having me, Sean.
So let's start just with a little bit of the kind of story of your pathway to your career, just to give students and the other mentors here a little bit of background to understand the context of how you ended up from graduate of York University to where you are today.
Sure, let's do it. It's so great to be here. First of all, thanks so much. Students, you're in for a real treat with the mentors that I've met. You're really going to benefit from all of these conversations. And so I'm thrilled to be here and grateful to be interviewed today. I recall being in your position many, many years ago. I was commenting to our mentor group that perhaps I was the oldest in the group, which is a little embarrassing. It's starting to happen to me. In any event, I graduated from economics 1992. At York. I lived on campus. I'm originally from Winnipeg. I then went and did a master's in business administration and law, actually at University of Ottawa. I graduated in 96. I practiced law at Osler's, one of the largest law firms in Canada. I did that for about 3.5 years. As I tell our current founders and entrepreneurs that we back now, I keep that on the down low, but I practiced law, and it actually was an amazing experience. I left law in early 2000 to join a venture capital fund that was incubating companies. So really at the cutting edge of innovation. This was in late 90s, early 2000, right at the apex of the internet craze. Learned a tremendous amount about company creation, invested in a number of companies, and then ultimately started a company with one of the managing partners of the fund and another gentleman who became my co-founder of that company and later one of our most successful investments in the fund. And that was in 2001. And then our company was sold in 2008. So I was a founder for many years. I went back to venture capital, the BlackBerry Partners Fund, which was a large venture capital fund investing all around the world in mobile-focused investing, and ultimately left there in 2010 and started Golden Ventures in 2011. Golden Ventures is a seed stage. In other words, just to define that, that's typically the first institutional money into a company. So we're at the very, very early stage, backing entrepreneurs at the very start of their journey. We invest across North America. We're investing out of our fourth fund now, which is a $100 million US dollar fund. We've backed over 80 startups, companies. We invest, I would say, generally about 65, 70% Canada, the rest in the US. And it's been an amazing journey. And that's my background.
Matt, just for my own curiosity, what got you interested in seed stage funding? Is it just because of the kind of early point in which you get to get involved with a new enterprise?
Yeah, I got really interested in seed stage largely when I left law and I went to a fund that was incubating companies. We were really company creating, and I love that innovation, that creation process, and really understanding what it takes to get from idea all the way to sort of that first major funding event. And so that became my core focus. And even when we started our company together, my favorite point of that company was really sort of finding what we call product market fit, which is really building that product, getting it into customers' hands, and seeing that amazing evolution from idea to an actual company and then scaling from there.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because when I've spoken to other entrepreneurs, that early period of going from idea to product to market is to them at least seems to be some of the most exciting parts of being an entrepreneur. So it's kind of interesting to get into seed funding because you kind of get to relive that and witness it and participate in it multiple times.
Yeah, some call it exciting, some call it terrifying, some call it harrowing. But it's always super exciting. Certainly higher risk. We expect there to be a significant loss ratio in our investments. But in seed investing, venture capital is really an outlier business. You're looking for major outliers that will really determine the outcome of your funds. Mm-hmm. And so if you aren't seeing failure, you're typically not taking enough risk.
Right. This is super interesting. I don't want to deviate us too far along this path of just having so many of these conversations with alumni recently. But I do want to ask you a bit about your postgraduate studies. I think that may be relevant for some of the students here who are thinking about what their options might be after they graduate. Could you tell us a little bit about how you made the decision to go into law, what that process was like after graduation from your undergraduate studies?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I felt like I got a terrific background through my BA and particularly with a major in economics. I minored in psychology. I think terrific skill set, but at the same time, didn't feel like there was like a very specific application of the skill, and frankly, didn't quite know what I wanted to do yet. I was quite young, and law always interested me. I found it, fascinating, maybe from watching too many crime shows or whatever it was. But just even from a business perspective, I felt like it was a really great springboard into new thought processes and to business. And obviously gives you more credibility and an entry point, a clear entry point into the workforce. I did couple that though with an MBA, knowing that I didn't want to be a lawyer for the rest of my life. So I was sort of deliberate about that strategy.
And what was it that gave you the kind of push to then transition, I guess, from law into an entrepreneurial career?
Yeah, so I think I was always looking for that. Again, I was in a law firm, right, as I said, at the apex of the internet craze. And so for me, I felt like I was sitting on the sidelines, and I'm not really a sidelines person. And so I felt like I was helping all these entrepreneurs from a legal perspective, but really wanted to be part of the action, frankly. And so after doing that for just long enough that I gained some real skills, but not too long that I lost my creativity and ingenuity, that was sort of the impetus and push. And for the benefit of the students, I was also, again, very deliberate, and this will be a theme, around who I worked with at the law firm. I started working with people who were working on these early stage financings because it interested me. I gained mentorship through a number of the partners at that law firm who recognized that interest level. And then through the clients at the law firm, I built relationships. And they started to see me as more than perhaps just a lawyer to them.
That's really interesting. I think there are some commonalities to those entrepreneurial stories that are like the discovery of an opportunity. And then, I don't know, kind of like looking around and thinking, hey, this is just sitting there right in front of me. I could go for it. But I guess that leap from seeing the opportunity to actually taking the jump and going for it is a challenge.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about challenges in career development, because I think this will be relevant for students who are nearing graduation. What were some of the most significant challenges that you saw to making that transition from being a graduate into a career path? And of course, that career path evolving over time.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. And particularly economics, which is a phenomenal background, but again, doesn't have a sort of defined, clear path forward. It can. I mean, one of our mentors is an economist, and so sometimes that if that is your desire, that's perfect, and you might want to do a master's or whatever. But I think there's two things you have to look at. One is, do I want to go do more schooling, like academic work that points me very clearly in a direction that makes it much more obvious where I'm going to be heading, or how do I start navigating myself into areas of interest, right? Like, so I think that area to me is really, and I was trying to point some of these things out even in my career, how I was very deliberate about building a network. I think one of the most fundamental things you have to really think about when you're in a more horizontal degree like economics is being really deliberate about your strategy to bust into areas that interest you. And fundamentally, I say this all the time, I think that life is, you can't get through life without learning how to do some level of sales. And your product at this stage is yourself. And learning how to tell your story, understanding what would compel someone to basically invest in you from not dollars, but their time, their resources, and really learning how to articulate what it is either that you want to do or what you're interested in a way that, you know, fascinates someone to really want to work with you and mentor you. And what I think I did extremely well, and I really urge everyone to think about, is find areas that genuinely interest you and then find ways to bust into finding the right people who will have those conversations with you. And that's about being resourceful. That may be finding mentors who graduated from economics. That may be finding people who are at the top of the food chain in the area that you're looking at, finding them on LinkedIn. But before just saying, hey, would you talk to me? Figuring out, you know, doing your work. What are their areas of interest? What have they done? What can you give them back in return for them spending some time with you? So there's going to be like this common theme, but again, it's really about learning how to concisely tell your story and figuring out how to sell and get people around you and get them in your corner so that you start building the bridges towards, you know, the goals that you want to achieve.
And the good news for student participants here tonight is that in a lot of ways, they've already taken that first step to participate in a networking event, take advantage of the opportunity that's before you to connect with alumni from your own institution. I wondered if you could share a little bit more about your own networking strategies. And this may be true, actually, I think, of many career paths, but networking isn't just a function to find your career path. It actually persists throughout your career. Has that been the case as well in your field?
Oh, yeah. I mean, venture capital is fundamentally a networking game of some sort. Like, if you look at our business, it's making sure that the best founders in North America want to work with us, which means having very deep networks across whether it's accelerators, incubators. It's also very much brand building, which goes back to selling and telling your story. So people are aware of who you are, what, you know, for example, our firm, knowing our firm, marketing our firm, so that when people want to start companies, or they have started companies, that we're the first name that pops to mind. And then, you know, for our companies, because we invest early stage, we're always looking to build our networks so that these companies get financed by the very best investors across North America. So that's a whole other element of networking that we do, which is making sure that the top funds in the world want to meet our companies, and we make sure that we know them all and they trust us, and we become sort of a great filter for them to want to see deals. And so we regularly work with some of the top funds in North America and around the world. And then mentors for our entrepreneurs, making sure that in order for them to be successful, you know, getting the right people around them who have the right skill sets to help mentor them, and then building teams. So literally what we do is network. We network all day long, make sure that people get value out of the interactions that we have with them, and effectively just build a hub where it's like basically a hub and spoke model.
This is really valuable advice, and I think this may be something students should take away from a networking event. Is that networking is reciprocal, right? Like you're reaching out to people to build a relationship that should have some value for them as well. And I think sometimes for a student thinking about trying to break into a career in a field, finding a mentor may seem like just a kind of one-way relationship where you're looking for someone to give you something. But it's actually valuable for the mentors to connect with prospects, new people who are coming into the field, to share ideas and to learn from students as they're coming out from universities and from other programs going into their careers. I could keep going with more questions, but we are getting short on time here, Matt. Thanks so much for sharing some of your experiences and some wisdom for the students here this evening. And I'm sure we're now eager to get on with the actual networking tonight.